Americans for Prosperity team. 2004 of our very first Americans for Prosperity field office. So this place has a warm spot in my heart. I'm on the road with our Americans for Prosperity teams, and it's great to be here in Wichita. So coming to you live, I'm with Casey Mattox, who is our expert internally at Americans for Prosperity on judicial issues and judicial nominations and confirmations. And we wanted to talk to you about what is a really important issue before our nation. Our nation lost a, frankly, historic figure in Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Casey, I don't think that's an exaggeration, right, to say that she was a historic figure on the court and in our nation.
No, I think that's exactly right. I mean, no one would deny that. She had an incredibly impressive legal career, and it's a big loss to the court. And that's, you see the response to that from people around the country. I talked with my daughters about her passing, and I think one of the most touching things, if people have seen it, the way that former clerks respond, and you have the former clerks standing outside the courthouse over the last couple of days as she's laid in repose there. I think that's sort of a testament to the way that she was able to, make a difference in the lives of the clerks that she worked with. So it's a loss for the court, it's a loss for the country, and so I think no doubt about that.
Yeah, and what a tenacious, courageous fighter she was. She battled illnesses and with charm and humor and just a spirit that I think every American admires very much so. So with her passing, obviously the court drops from 9 to 8 justices, and the president has a constitutional obligation to nominate someone. The Senate, in its role of advising consent, the need to move forward there. Give us a sense of kind of how, take a moment, just in case folks are watching and going, how does this work? Take a moment, if you would, Casey, and explain the process, if you would, we're about to undergo here.
Sure. So you're right. Tim, you laid it out pretty well there, but okay. Basically there's no doubt at all, despite all of the controversy that is going to arise around this nomination, that both the president and the Senate are acting within their constitutional prerogatives. The Constitution creates a system of checks and balances, right? So that each branch is able to check the power of another. And one of those critical checks and balances is that it's the people who get onto the Supreme Court only get there because the president has nominated them and then the Senate has confirmed them. And all of that is a critical part of the process, and that's what we should see playing out over the next several weeks.
Yeah, and the Senate, it's a straight majority vote, right, for folks?
It is now, and historically, there's always been some changes there, but for the last several years, going back to decisions that were made back in 2013, 2014, to change the system that said that we would just have a straight up and down vote on judicial nominees, and then Leader McConnell continued that change onto the Supreme Court as well. So it would be a straight up and down vote in the Senate after a nominee typically goes through the hearing process that we've become familiar with in the last several cycles. Then the full Senate would vote, and it would be an up or down vote.
Yeah, and the Trump administration, President Trump has nominated 2 justices or individuals who, in Gorsuch first and then Kavanaugh. Casey, we looked at both of those nominees closely and in the end supported them. Is that right? Can you take a minute on that, if you would?
Absolutely. So we did support both Justices Gorsuch and Kavanaugh. The way that we look at Supreme Court nominations, it's not about the president that's choosing them. It's not about the senators that are making that decision. It's about the justice and that justice's philosophy. And so we look at the qualifications of the person who is being chosen. Is this a person who is ready to be a Supreme Court justice? But then most importantly, what is the judicial philosophy that this person would bring to the court? Is this someone who is, the way we describe it, a constitutionalist, someone who puts the Constitution first understands what the role of the court is, that the role of the court is to interpret the law as it's written and understood at the time it was written, whether the Constitution or statutes, and understands that job, does that job, holds the other branches of government responsible to the restrictions placed on them in the Constitution, and protects our freedoms. And if a nominee is someone who we believe would be someone who would do those things, that's someone that we want to support and see on the court.
Yeah, and we looked very carefully, Casey, your team, at Gorsuch, and then at Kavanaugh. We decided they met that standard, and then Americans for Prosperity. We went all in to try to build public support, because give a sense of why is it, if folks that are watching right now, in the Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, or if the president nominates someone who again meets that standard, and his track record has been very good on judges at every level, why is it important that Americans, folks like Americans for Prosperity, are taking action to contact their Senate? Why does that matter? Take a moment on that.
Sure. Well, I think it's so important that the folks listening take action, because the court matters so much.
Yeah.
And I think that the ironic thing is that what we would really like to see would be for the court to matter much less than it does. And that's really kind of the hope here, is that we move to a place where when an individual Supreme Court justice passes away, that you mourn that individual because of what that individual meant, in the case of Justice Ginsburg especially. But there's not the same sort of change in or perceived change in the way it's going to affect people's lives, because the Supreme Court shouldn't have that kind of power. And that's been, unfortunately, the history of our country for many years, is moving more and more power toward Washington, D.C. Generally, and then largely the Congress handing that power over, both to the executive branch and to the court, and the court willingly taking a lot of that power on and writing laws from the bench, and not protecting individual rights where they should. So you have the other branches of government able to violate those rights. What we want to see is, hopefully a place, sooner or later, where we don't have to have this focus on the Supreme Court in the same way, because the Supreme Court does its job and is holding the other branches responsible to their job. And we're able to see Americans around the country advocate for policies that they believe in much more locally, much more close to them, and in the proper way, with the levels of government that should be the ones making policy decisions.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And I know the president has said that he intends to nominate someone on Saturday, this coming Saturday. I think it's 5 p.m. Eastern. We're going to be watching very carefully. Leader McConnell has said that he expects the Senate to move expeditiously to begin hearings, discussions on the nominee, and then a vote sometime after that and after the debate in the next few weeks. And so I can tell you, we are waiting on Saturday, looking at that nominee. The track record has been good of this administration. We do want to make sure that this individual meets the qualifications, because this is such an important position, these 9 justices. And one thing for folks watching right now, we would urge you to get involved here. I know there is so much going on in our country. We have a pandemic that we're battling. We have an economic crisis, dislocation like we've never seen before. We have so many other issues. There's also an election obviously going on. But this Supreme Court choice, the nomination anyway, and then this confirmation battle, if you will, it's important. And so we're going to ask you to be watching closely. We'll certainly be following up Casey and his team very quickly once the nominee is chosen or announced on Saturday. I think it's at 5 p.m. And then assuming that nominee meets the standard, again, this administration's had a really good track record on judges. We will go all in if that's the case. I know when Gorsuch was nominated and when Kavanaugh was nominated, we literally had hundreds of thousands of folks from all walks of life emailing and calling and reaching out to their senators' offices, asking them to vote yes on Gorsuch and Kavanaugh. And I talked to so many senators who said, wow, it matters when my phone is lighting up. It matters when I'm getting text and emails to my offices. It matters when folks are going on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, urging me to vote a certain way. And so, Casey, if we get involved here, that's the kind of track record we have, right, of asking folks. We're a grassroots organization, asking Americans from all walks of life to make their voices heard, right?
No, that's absolutely right. And it's why we build a grassroots network like we have. You build it so that in a moment like this, where there's a critical moment to be able to engage on a very important issue that matters to our country, that our grassroots activists are ready to go. We have people who understand the issue, know why it's important, and are able to immediately turn, and we're able to provide the opportunity for them to be able to speak to members of Congress and let them know what their views are on this and what they hope they do.
Yeah. By the way, a little bit of a change of pace, but so often we hear the term legislating from the bench. We hear that term a lot. Folks watching right now, you've probably heard people say, well, that judge legislates from the bench. I've heard that term for a long time. I think I know what it means, but Casey, take a moment and explain to folks why we think that's a really bad idea and what we mean when we say that.
Sure. What we mean when we say that is that Congress, we elect Congress for the purpose of them being the ones who write the laws. Now, Congress has largely, abdicated that responsibility in a lot of ways. It has provided a lot of power to administrative agencies and asked them to write the laws, but it also gives a lot of power to the courts in much the same way. And it will write laws that where it avoids the hard choices and asks the court to be the one to fill in the blanks on the laws. And the problem either with asking administrative agencies or the courts to make determinations like that is that there's no opportunity for Americans to be able to weigh in and say what they think about those decisions being made, either by unelected bureaucrats in Washington, D.C., or by federal judges who have life terms on the Supreme Court. The way that law is supposed to be made is that those difficult decisions have to be made by the people who are elected to make those decisions. So when you have a Supreme Court justice who may be right in terms of wanting a certain result, feeling like this result is going to be the best for the country, I think one of the quotes that we've seen before from prior nominees, I believe now Justice Kavanaugh had said that if you were a judge who likes the result in all of your cases, you're probably not a very good judge. And that's exactly the kind of mentality that you would hope that a judge would bring to the cases, that they would find themselves making decisions often that they didn't like, that they didn't like the fact that is the law. And so I will enforce the law as it was written. I will write this opinion applying the law to the individuals before me. But boy, I hope that Congress fixes that, because I think that's the wrong resolution. That's a good judge.
Yeah. So we touched on this earlier, but there are 9 Supreme Court justices. With Ruth Bader Ginsburg's passing, we're at 8, obviously. What is just for folks watching, I bet there's curiosity about this. What does happen if that vacancy is out there for a while, a case is before the court, and there's a 4-4 tie? What does it revert back? Or take a moment and explain to folks what happens in that situation. If you have a case that's before the court, they're short of justice because of a retirement, or in this case, a very unfortunate passing. What happens to that case if it's 4-4?
Well, the short answer is what happens is whatever happens. Basically, if the lower court has decided a case and the Supreme Court decides it needs to hear the case, but the Supreme Court ties 4-4 on the vote, then whatever the lower court decided stands as the law. Now, one of the challenges is you have 12, 13 different federal circuit courts that cases could be coming to the Supreme Court from, in addition to all the state Supreme Courts, right? So one of the challenges there is you could have exactly the same legal question, and it could come to the court from multiple different places. and they could have very different results in one part of the country and another part of the country. California judges might decide one thing, and New York judges might decide another thing, and Texas judges another. And if those get to the Supreme Court and the court ties 4-4, then you have a different law that applies.
So the standard would not be the same. You would have a different legal standard across the various districts in the country, right? Is what you're saying.
That's right. That's right. So you could have, federal law could operate differently in different parts of the country, which is obviously problematic. And particularly
for individuals. Yeah, absolutely. Right. So there's a reason that, you would want to move in a reasonably expeditious manner to get the court back up to that full strength where it's an odd number and you can actually have standards that are clear and concise, right?
No, that's correct. I think it's important that the court be at full strength as soon as they, as soon as a qualified nominee can be named and the Senate can work through its process. I think it's important that the court get to full strength as soon as they can.
Yeah. So to summarize for folks watching, this Saturday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, my understanding is the president will announce his nominee for the court. Mitch McConnell, the Senate Majority Leader, has stated that he intends to move in an expeditious fashion to consider the nominee and with looking toward a vote in the next few weeks. At Americans for Prosperity, this is an important issue for us because of the implications of the Supreme Court decisions. Casey has really laid those out in succinct, clear fashion, why we get involved in these and why it's important to have justices who are not legislating from the bench, but who are simply, strictly interpreting the Constitution, so that the real power of legislation lies, not surprisingly, with legislators, not judges. This administration with Gorsuch and Kavanaugh made highly qualified nominations. We supported both of those, so the track record is good. We'll look at the nominee on Saturday. Already our teams have been vetting. I think, Casey, you've looked at some of the candidates who have kind of come up before. I think that's right. So you have an idea of some past folks. Can you take a moment? Do you look at old decisions? Take up maybe a minute, if you would, because people may be wondering, well, how does a group like AFP, genuinely decide or say this is a qualified nominee?
Right.
Give us a sense of that. That's an interesting question.
Sure. No, and we have a number of folks on our team who have been working really over the last, several years, looking at judicial opinions of possible nominees, at public statements, at things they've written, law review articles, and those sorts of things that they've written, any speeches that they've given, and trying to better understand what is their judicial philosophy. Is this the kind of person that we can expect to be the kind of judge that we've talked about here? And so we've been reviewing these things for a long time. It's obviously very helpful that the president provides a list, and so you have a bit more of a finite universe of people to look at, and so you're able to get a better understanding of who these folks are. And so we are continuing to do that process now, and trying to better understand everything we can about the possible nominees before Saturday.
Yeah, and Casey, you were telling me earlier that in addition to the Supreme Court nominations and confirmations, this administration and this Senate have nominated and confirmed. Is it accurate to say more lower court judges, below the Supreme Court than in any 4-year or 3.5-year period in American history? Is that number right? Because I know it's a large number. Is that accurate?
No, that may very well be right. It's roughly 1/4 of all federal judges in the country at this point have been nominated by President Trump and confirmed by the Senate. So that has been a remarkable number of judges that have been confirmed. There was a backlog when President Trump came into office, and the Senate has been working on filling those seats pretty expeditiously over the last several years.
I know over the last 20 years, I know that there's always, it's a sad joke, but the Ninth Circuit out in California, the West Coast, was always seen as this, frankly, they would put forward legislation from the bench. That district was infamous, right, for being incredibly aggressive in using their judicial positions to, frankly, just push their ideology. And that's changing because of appointments over the last 3.5 years. Is that safe to say?
That's correct. And those are actually good examples of people that our community have also supported. At least, very recently, we supported the confirmation of 2 more judges out in the Ninth Circuit, and several other lower court nominees that we have supported over the last several years. Again, not every judge. We take a very careful look at who are the nominees, and make sure that we are supporting the people that we think are most aligned with our community and our view of the law, and where we think that our activists can make the biggest difference. And so that's been important in those states, and we continue to engage on those lower court nominees where we have an opportunity.
Yeah. Well, ladies and gentlemen watching, this is a big moment for the country. There is a lot going on, but this is a big moment on Saturday when the president announces his nominee and when the Senate begins considering the nominee. I can tell you, we're going to watch. You've heard from Casey today and his team. They'll be very carefully looking through the vetting. We have a list that we've been going off of, as he mentioned, that the administration had put forward of potential folks for the court. His team have already been looking at that. It's a big moment. In all candor, we're dismayed that there are voices out there threatening all sorts of crazy actions in future Senates if this process moves forward. We're disappointed by that kind of rhetoric, in all candor, because the role of the president is to nominate, and the role of the Senate is in an expeditious fashion to consider a nomination and either confirm or reject. So those voices making these political threats, it's disappointing to see that. This is how the process works. When there is an opening, you move forward and you try to make sure the country in a reasonable fashion has that full Supreme Court so that it can rule. You heard Casey talk about what happens when it's tied 4-4. If a decision happens, it causes confusion across our country. And so this is a big moment. We'll be watching very closely on Saturday night. We very well may be coming to you as activists and asking you to get involved here. So please stay tuned. It's a big moment. And Casey, I know on Saturday, I guess at 5, you'll be watching very closely, right?
No, that's right. We will be watching to see who the president's pick is, and looking forward if this is a person who aligns with our community's philosophy. We will be making a lot of asks of those folks who are listening to speak up and let their voices be heard.
So, ladies and gentlemen, be ready. All right, be ready. Casey and his team will dig into it quickly, and let's make sure that the process works the way it's supposed to work, and that we, frankly, push through those voices who make political threats and use rhetoric they shouldn't be using to question a process which is constitutional and, frankly, the norm. So, I'm Tim Phillips. You just have been hearing from Casey Mattox as well. Thank you for being a part of Americans for Prosperity. From Wichita, Kansas, I'm wishing you a great Thursday and going into the weekend. Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you so much if you watched all the way through that for this message from Americans for Prosperity and Tim Phillips about the upcoming Supreme Court nomination. If you're still watching right now, the link is in the description to contact your senators and let them know how you feel about the upcoming Senate nomination. Thank you so much for watching. This has been Americans for Prosperity Tennessee. Have an excellent day.